Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to today's TribalWise webinar. My name is Leslie McLove, and I will be your moderator on behalf of the TribalWise team today. Just a couple of things before we get started. I wanted to go over a couple of housekeeping things. First off, thank you to Arctic IT and to Microsoft for joining us today for this webinar. We are going to be talking about the future of tribal community services and introducing Platforms 4.0 cloud applications. So just two things I wanted to let you know before we hop in is one, if you have any questions throughout the entire webinar, please drop them into the chat box. I will be monitoring that, and at the end of the conversation, Peggy and Don will be addressing everyone's questions. So again, drop those in the chat box and I will make sure that we address those towards the end. Secondly, I just wanted to let you know that this webinar is being recorded and a copy of the webinar will be mailed out to you via email within 24 hours, so you can watch it on replay if needed. And it is also added to the TribalWise website, so if you want to refer anyone to rewatch the webinar, you can go ahead and send them to TribalWise.com and they can watch the replay. So without further ado, I just want to let you know that Arctic IT and Microsoft are back again for this TribalWise presentation. This is the fourth installment of their webinar series, which is their Road to TribalNet series. They truly saved the best for last with this presentation. Before we get started, I just want to again thank Arctic IT and Microsoft for joining us. And then joining us today on behalf of Arctic is Peggy. And then someone very familiar to the tribal space is Mr. Don Leonetti. Peggy is Arctic IT's pre-sales solution architect for tribes, and Don serves as the point of sales for Microsoft's tribal sector. Both Arctic IT and Microsoft will be joining us in 2 weeks at TribalNet, which we are ecstatic for and gearing up here at the office, so things are crazy. And be sure to go to both of their booths if you're attending, so that way you can meet both of these guys in person. And I'll be there too, so make sure you stop by the Tribal Hub booth. There's quite a few people on the call today, so thank you all for your time and your participation. And any questions, like I said, drop into the chat box, and then we'll answer those at the end. So without further ado, I'm going to pass it over to Peggy.
Thank you so much, Leslie. I'm going to quickly switch over to our slide deck. So hopefully now everyone is seeing the future of tribal community services, introducing Tribal Platforms 4.0 cloud applications. Good morning, good afternoon to everyone, depending on where you are. And again, thank you for joining us today for this fourth and final webinar in our Road to TribalNet series. As Leslie already stated, today's webinar is entitled The Future of Tribal Community Services. I'm Peggy German from Arctic IT, and I'm joined today by Don Leonetti of Microsoft. I've been with Arctic for 7 years now, and I've been focusing primarily on our tribal clients and our tribal platforms implementations for most of that time in various roles. All right, so let's walk through our agenda for today. We'll start out with an introduction to Arctic IT. Then we'll move on to talk about IT modernization, legacy versus cloud systems. We'll do an overview of Tribal Platforms 4.0. Talking about Microsoft Dynamics 365 and the Power Platform, and then specifically about the Tribal Platforms suite of applications that we built on that platform. Then we're actually going to dive into a live sort of preview, if you will, showing you some of the latest features of the Tribal Platforms suite that we offer. And then hopefully we will allow enough time at the end for some Q&A. So we offer a partnership that works for you and your tribe. We have deep roots with tribes. We're very, very proud to say we've partnered with tribes for over 17 years. Some might be on this call already, some of our clients. So if you are, thanks for being an Arctic IT client, and hello. Our client experience extends to over 90 tribal entities across the United States, including Alaska, where we made our start as a company. We specialize in technology for tribal governments and casinos. We've been a longtime partner of Tribal Hub, who brings you these wonderful TribalWise educational webinars. We are 100% owned by an Alaska Native corporation, Doyon Limited, as well as a Microsoft Gold partner for over 15 years. Anytime Microsoft has a tribal program or project they have to work on, they typically will call on us to help and assist with that implementation. And we're also very, very excited to be with you all today. Arctic IT and Microsoft share a deep level of partnership that benefits our clients. We are viewed as industry experts, and we even have the special distinction of having a Dynamics MVP on staff. MVP stands for Most Valuable Professional. We are such experts with Microsoft products that we are often asked to help train Microsoft staff on how to use their own products. Don, would you like to share a couple thoughts about your feelings on the AIT Microsoft partnership?
Yeah, thanks so much, Peggy. So I'm Don Leonetti. I've been at Microsoft for 19 years, and for the last almost 16 years, I've focused exclusively on the tribal market. That would encompass tribal governments, tribal businesses, which primarily, as we all know, are the casino operations, but also some are venturing out into other diverse businesses. We also cover tribal healthcare, and finally, the Alaska Native corporations, which are primarily federal government contractors. I've had a partnership with Arctic IT almost since the beginning, about 15 of the 15 and a half years. I discovered Arctic early on with my work in the tribes, and they were doing work with our tribal customers, and it just became a natural partnership. I also believe that their company holds the same values that we do in terms of doing what's right for the customer and really understanding the tribal market so they can bring unique solutions on our technology to the tribe. So they've done a great job, probably worked with 100 different tribes over that 15-year period. And I have no better partner that I work with that understands the tribal businesses and their needs and the tribal governments and the unique needs of the tribes better than Arctic IT. So I'll stop there, and enough said about how much I think of Arctic IT. Back to you, Peggy.
Thank you very much, Don. All right, here's a quick splash of some of our current tribal clients that we've worked with that we're either actively working with or have already gone live with some of our solutions in the past. We work with some of the largest tribes in the country, such as Seminole Tribe of Florida, Mohegan Sun, Mississippi Band of Choctaw, Porch Creek Indians, just to name a few. So I'll pause there just a quick moment so you can get an idea of some of the tribes and also some of the casinos that we've worked with over the years. This is a quote from one of our partners at the Mohegan tribe, George Wood, who is a very trusted client. And he said, Arctic IT has become a real partner with our team and just fills in perfectly where we need help. We've worked with George and his team together, and we've built our relationship over the years. We appreciate that. All right, now let's move on and talk about IT modernization. So these are some of the challenges that tribes face that we see over and over. We see examples of these in nearly every conversation that we have. Typically, there are siloed systems in Indian country. For example, file cabinets for each department. Pretty much any department that has a grant has their own unique set of data. And these siloed systems lead to duplicate data. Housing might have an address and phone number from 3 or 4 years ago, and then the energy department might have a more recent address, which is different from what the housing department has on file for the same person. Departments don't share data consistently either. Many tribes use paper to track their member and services data, or Excel spreadsheets and so forth. We really care about the environment. However, we tend to use a lot of paper. This also leads to information such as notes getting lost in translation, and it can be difficult to review all the notes from other staff, or notes on paper get lost or misfiled. Also, sometimes files can't even be found because they're sitting on someone else's desk in another department, and when you need that, you can't get your hands on it. Many tribes must do grant writing, and grants often require many data sets. This can be very, very difficult and time consuming to pull together if your data is all disparate and kept manually. A system like ours makes it easy to pull together reports in real time. A big problem with legacy systems is that you have security issues. For example, what if a staff member doesn't like another tribal member and they leak information into the community? Or what if you have a disgruntled employee who works with an outside entity and gives away passwords? And then you get hacked, and then you get held for ransom. Unfortunately, this has occurred a lot over the past couple of years, and we've unfortunately, had to help many tribes bring back their systems from such an event. Let's do a comparison between legacy systems and cloud systems. What do I mean when I say legacy? This means what tribes have been using in the past. Usually the software is on a computer in your office. It's vulnerable to site-related issues beyond your control. For example, most recently, COVID, which sent everyone home and no one could access their data because it was sitting on a server or a computer in the tribal office, and also no one could obtain services. Redundancy is difficult and expensive. And if a restore of data or a restore of backed up data is necessary, recovery can be very complicated. Remote access requires remote desktop or VPN use, which can be problematic. Support costs can be high. And obviously, as I mentioned already, subject to security risk and hacking. More and more tribes are embracing the move to the cloud. It's a huge benefit for tribes. It's more secure, it's easier to use, it supports sovereignty, one set of data that every department can pull from and share appropriately with a security model on top to make sure that confidential information is kept where it needs to be. The burden of keeping hardware and software up and running is transferred. There's multi-site data centers that relieve the risk of local issues, guarantee redundancy, and the data recovery process is much easier. A remote workforce is much more common these days. It will likely continue. And with the cloud system, you can access apps from anywhere. There's efficient internet connectivity on any device. We are recommended by Microsoft as the organization to transition tribal orgs to the cloud. Don, I know you have some points to add here, and then you're going to take on the next few slides. So I'll turn it back over to you.
Yeah, and I would echo Peggy's comments that even before the pandemic, tribes were making the move to the cloud, but it just accelerated in the last 18 months that to the point now, I would say 70% of our revenue and business is coming from the tribes in the cloud. We have over 300 tribes, and maybe it's on the next slide, I think, Peggy, over 300 different tenants in the cloud. That means each unique tribe has their own tenancy within our Office 365 platform. And so over 300 tribes are using the cloud today. Over 75,000 users are in the cloud with tribal customers. And just like Peggy said, it really is a much more secure environment. We've seen several tribes have hacking and cyber attack issues. In some cases, a couple of casinos were completely shut down for several days. And you can imagine what the financial impact of that is if your casino is not able to operate. One in particular in California, they were on legacy systems, so all of their software was on premise. And immediately, within 3 months after they fixed the problem, they moved to the cloud because they just realized the benefits of the security we provide outweigh the challenges that they perceived in moving to the cloud. So again, the other thing I'd add, in this pandemic environment as well, with the American Recovery Act and formerly the CARES Act, there was a lot of money, of course, that was flowing to tribal nations, and most of it was for COVID-related activities for your healthcare. But in the documentation on the funding, you could also use it for technology investments. And most recently, the Biden administration is mandating that all federal, state, and local agencies become secure. And there's funding available from the federal government to help you become more secure. And that does translate over to the tribes as well. So my point is, if you're interested in getting more secure or moving to this platform that Peggy's showing today, should be, depending on where your CFO has allocated the funding, but there should be funding available to make these moves. Having said that, the platform that Arctic's solution is built on, if you can see the graphic on the right of this slide, the platform is Microsoft Dynamics 365. And think of all of those pieces of the wheel around the middle of that document are your different departments at the tribe. So perhaps it's your elderly program, your housing program, your child's welfare system, your educational system, tribal courts, tribal leadership. Any department that touches a tribal member would be represented by the pieces around the wheel in the middle. And we've got them represented here as sales and marketing and customer service and field service. Field service could be a caseworker out in the field that is using a tablet device to go out and do their work. And then they upload data onto that tablet. And once they get online, either at home or back in the office, all the data is uploaded into the system. HR has a component here too, human resources. So you can see it can be customized, and Arctic has customized it for the unique needs of tribes. So using this integrated cloud platforms, we're unifying your ERP and I would call it citizen relationship management capabilities. You're breaking down data silos. So as Peggy pointed out, we ran across tribes in the past and some still today that every department has their own siloed data. And this gives you one view of the tribal person or the family. And what's important about that is that, you have elected leaders, that the chief or the president of the tribe, or in Chickasaw's case, it's called the governor. They would love to have the statistics that can be generated from this system to say, okay, in the last year, we touched 70% of our tribal people and performed 3,000 inquiries, 3,000 tasks for the tribal people that came in via our portal to request services. I know Choctaw has put together a member services portal that they did over 200,000 applications for their tribal members through this type of system. So in essence, it's one platform to optimize the performance of your business processes. It's using a common data model and embedded Microsoft 365 business apps and Power BI with real-time analytics. So Power BI is a kind of a dashboard type tool that you can get those immediate real-time analytics to say, okay, how many people this last month requested services with our tribal child welfare department, and you can immediately get those statistics and data at your fingertips. So you get a lot of real-time insights and analytics through this type of system when it's on that kind of platform. So we've been talking about security and governance. Dynamics 365 is built on the Azure cloud platform, with security being first and certified and tested, continuous operations and lifecycle services, always having the latest and greatest technology. You get unlimited storage and computing. So with our cloud platform, whether it's Dynamics 365 or Office 365, your users are getting unlimited storage, and gone are the days where you run out of SAN and have to go buy more hardware. Once you're on our platform, unlimited data. In the middle there, with an integrated platform and a common data service on the Microsoft Power Platform, that's a way to have citizen developers, if you will. It's a way, no code type development, where they can take let's say a paper-based process and turn it into an automated process very, very easily. Let's see, on the collaboration platform, we talked about Microsoft. It's all integrated to Microsoft 365, shared calendars, advanced email functionality, Outlook, Exchange, and your people can connect to the system on any device, anywhere, in any time. So they could be on their mobile device, they could be at home on a home machine. Of course, this is all secure, and they'd have to log in a secure environment in order to access the data. Microsoft's philosophy on security is we have solutions to protect the user's identity. So if we can basically force things like multi-factor authentication and single sign-on. If you're seeing in a conditional access environment where someone's logging in from a Starbucks and you want to force them to use MFA. So we're protecting that user's identity on the mobile device or on their PC or iPad or Droid tablet. We're protecting the data that's flowing, whether it's in email or SharePoint. We have tools like anti-phishing and safe attachments and safe links, so that the user, if they get an email with a nefarious attachment or a link, we're going to know that before the document's delivered to the end user. And we will then just send the user a note that says, hey, you got an email from John Doe at xyz.com. We noted it had a bad attachment or a bad link, and therefore we removed it from this document, but you'll get an alert. And finally, the Dynamics 365 is a software as a service product. Again, it allows for mobility to work anywhere on any device, anytime, has security built in, the cloud lifecycle management for upgrades and unlimited support. It's integrated to Microsoft 365. We have feature enhancements with ongoing updates based on user feedback. And finally, the enhanced usability with Dynamics unified interface that you can see comes across similarly on any device and formats to the size of that device. So it's very user-friendly and again, works across all the platforms, whether it's Microsoft, Android, or Apple iOS. All right, and I mentioned this earlier, but we have over 300 tribes now that have tenants in our cloud, and that's growing. We probably get 3 to 5 more a month that are coming on board. 83,000 total employees on Microsoft, tribal employees on Microsoft 365, which is our Cadillac version, which has all that security and compliance built in. Over 50 tribal organizations are on Dynamics 365, the platform Peggy's talking about today. There's also an additional 65,000 tribal users that are in the cloud with mixed suites, maybe our lower entry suites, but still starting to use the cloud services. And this doesn't even indicate the tribes that are using Azure, which is another form of our cloud platform for putting virtual machines in the cloud or hosting your website, doing things like that in the cloud with infrastructure and platform as a service. So that this doesn't include the data on Azure as well. So Peggy, next slide. I think it might be back to you.
Yep. Awesome. Thank you so very much, Don.
You're welcome. Thank you, Peggy.
Sure. All right. So let's talk about Arctic IT's Travel Platforms 4.0, which is built on the Microsoft Dynamics 365 platform and the Power Platform. All right. So as I said, we built Tribal Platforms right on top of the Microsoft Dynamics 365 platform, and we leverage many of its features, starting with the member master database, as the tribal member or citizen is the primary focus for tracking and service delivery. A robust security model enforces cross-department policies and ensures that users have access to only the data elements that are appropriate and sharing data appropriately without storing duplicate data. The system inherits the security protection from the Microsoft Dynamics 365 platform and supports tribal sovereignty. Use of business rules and workflows helps to ensure processes are followed consistently. Reporting and analytics, including the ability to produce ad hoc views and reports, is available. And we have used, many tribes have taken tribal platforms as a replacement for Progeny, which some of you may be familiar with. And that's, we migrate the data right over to tribal platforms and keep on going without a blink. Works very, very well. So let's review some of the core features of Tribal Platforms 4.0, which is our latest release. This is a list of the apps that are available with the Tribal Platforms 4.0 solution suite. These apps allow tribal organizations to collaborate, manage their member master database, and support business best practices for your organization. We typically start by deploying the enrollment app as the base application, so you can start managing your membership and then build on that by adding other apps as you have need and resources. You can add Family Wellness, which supports your family and child case management, program management, and service request management. The Community Portal, which enables your tribal members to engage and provide them with self-service with 24-hour-a-day secure access. It can be used for members to update their contact or other information, as well as applying for services. The Tribal Court app, and we've seen tremendous interest in this area recently. You can manage your court case lifecycle along with secure document management. Distribution payments allows you the ability to manage the processing of and the eligibility for member recurring payments such as per capita and general welfare, as well as processing one-off payments to members directly or to third parties on behalf of for services. This includes the ability to export the data for check and ACH information to then import into your financial system if you desire. And then we can optionally also set up an integration that automatically will push that information over for the payment processing in the financial system. We know that every tribal organization does things a little differently. So all of our apps are very highly configurable, meaning we can make custom configurations to meet your tribal specific needs. We work with you and your team to identify any gaps and then design the best way to incorporate your unique requirements into the tribal platform solutions. In addition, we've done a number of deployments for housing and education departments. Housing and education tends to be very, very unique for each tribal organization. So we've taken what we've learned from those deployments and we offer what we call solution accelerators for housing and education, using some of what we've done before as a starting point. All right, so now we'll get a little bit more into detail about each of these apps. Features of the enrollment app include centralized tribal member database, as we've said many times before, storing member information in one place and sharing appropriately to other departments. The master database can also include non-members as needed for relationships, emergency contacts, household members, etc. We can track blood quanta if applicable, and this can be either automatically calculated based off the BQ of the biological parents, if that's on file, from ancestry perspective, or manually entered, as needed. Ancestor and descendant trees and reports are available. There's an ID card printing app with multiple formats that it can include photos and signatures. And it comes with its own designer. So if you need to create additional ID card formats in the future, you have the ability to do that. Integration with the distribution payment apps to manage eligibility for recurring batch payments, such as per capita and general welfare, and then integration with the family wellness app for sharing member information, including demographics, address, phone, email, households, and income and expense information for determining eligibility. Features of the family wellness app include, as I just said, sort of on the reverse, integration with the enrollment app for sharing member information, including demographics, et cetera. And the key data is not stored in more than one place. It's everyone using the same data. Support for family services, case management programs such as financial assistance, substance and domestic abuse, child protective services, family wellness plans, foster care and placement, ICWA, notice tracking and follow-up, group activity scheduling and participation, local resource referrals, and payment requests. With the security model, again, you're sharing only the appropriate member record data elements as needed and securing the confidential information. Features of the community portal include a secure 24-hour access via a website for all members that you decide you want to provide that access to. Members can submit requests for services, make requests for things like address changes, apply for programs, et cetera. They can do this from anywhere they have access to an internet browser and at their convenience. This reduces or nearly eliminates the need for in-person visits to staff in the tribal offices. And then the tribal government staff can also respond to requests more efficiently while tracking each touch, if you will, with a member via the portal. We work with you to customize the portal and meet your unique requirements after we understand what your needs are. Features of the Tribal Court app include management of the court case lifecycle, tracking court parties and hearings with views in either a list or calendar format, dashboards for court judges and court clerks, tracking charges and penalties, and secure document management. And finally, features of the distribution payment app includes processing recurring batch payments such as per capita or general welfare, setting up any number of payment types such as you might have a monthly per cap payment for minors, adults, and seniors, each with a different amount, manage withholdings and garnishments for those, payments on behalf of and reimbursement payments. And then you can schedule payment events to process bulk and batch payments, and then grab the unprocessed payment request from the Family Wellness app. The payments requests from the Family Wellness app include one-time recurring assistance payments paid directly to the member or payments on behalf of for services. From there, you can export the payment records to Excel for import into the finance system, optionally integrate that automatically using an integration that we could set up so that you're sending over the payment requests or invoices directly to accounts payable, or we could even send them to the payroll system for processing. And then reporting to understand who is receiving payments and how often, as well as tracking budgets for your action and budget to actual for your programs. All right, enough of slides. It's time to actually get into the solution. So let me quickly switch over to our demo environment. All right, so here we go. We'll start off with the enrollment app. I've already logged into the system and landed on my dashboard here. We have 3 dashboards that kind of come out of the box, but this again is a highly configurable area where we can set up to meet whatever your unique needs are for a dashboard. Essentially, giving you a place to see in one view status of what's going on, what actions you might have for that day, things that you need to act upon, and they can be in list format, as you can see here, graph format, bar charts, etc. Again, very, very highly customizable. But because we're in a browser here, if I click down, you can see that as I change the size of my screen, this is more or less a full sort of desktop view, if you will. But if I shrink this down to maybe the size of what a tablet screen might look like, everything just rearranges itself and automatically fits into that screen size, depending on what device you're using. And if I shrink this down even further to maybe the size of a phone, again, all the data is still there. It's just reformatted itself into that smaller screen size. So you don't lose anything, and it's automatic. We don't have to install anything on any of these devices, it just automatically does this for us thanks to the Microsoft platform that we've built it on top of. Let's see. Okay, I'm logged, as I wanted to say, I want logged into the system as an administrator, so I do have access to all the applications. So if I click up on the top here where it says enrollment, these are the various different apps. Typically, tribal staff for other departments who may need only read access to things like confirming membership, checking an address or a phone number, things like that, they would probably have access to this tribal staff application, which still they can see into the system, but they can't make any changes or any updates or add any data to the system. An example we've seen for this type of use would be providing access to maybe your tribal police force so that they can check when they're working with an individual to confirm whether or not that individual is a tribal member and maybe get some contact information on them as well. With the robust security model, we work with you to determine the level of access for each user of your system. Typically, we set up multiple roles, and again, we can hide things down to that field level if we need to. We can restrict full data sets. We can also restrict down to the field level, so you can still see pieces of a contact, for example, but not every data element on it, and we'll see that in a moment. Okay, so let's go back to enrollment. Open up our contacts. So this is what you're seeing here is a list of all members of the tribe, but out of the box, you have multiple different views. An example here, members of the tribe who are living, members of the tribe who are deceased. And you see, as I pick these different views, the filters are built into these views and automatically change the list of data that you see. You'll also have the ability to create your own views, and starting with any existing view, you can filter further, similar to what you might do in Excel with filtering by column, sorting by column, and getting that data down to whatever particular filtered list of data that you're looking for. Let's see. All right, so now we're ready to dive into, let's go back to our members of the tribe all and open up Alicia's record. Let's see what type of data and data elements we track on each of our contacts. We can store a photo. I don't have one here of Alicia, but that's where it would appear if we did do that. And then we have, of course, our demographic information, name, phone numbers, name, social security numbers, vendor numbers, birth and death dates, age and age group are automatically calculated, gender, race, ethnicity, etc. One thing I wanted to call out here is you'll see an example of the field level security. We have a key next to this social security number field. That indicates that this particular field is set up for field level security. Now, as I'm an administrator, as well as being, in this case, wearing my enrollment hat, I do see that full social security number, but you'll also see that there's the SSN-last4, which has the lock icon on it, which means I can't make any changes to this field. It's created automatically by the system based on what's entered in the SSN field. So for folks who are not necessarily enrollment staff, such as perhaps the police force, maybe even your family wellness staff, you may have a reason or a rule that they should not be able to see the full social security number. So when they access the system, we would apply that security model, and they would still potentially see this label, but they would only see asterisks in this field, but we might expose them to the last 4, just so they can do confirmation. So again, just the various different examples of the various different layers of security that can be applied, so you can control very carefully the information that is shared with others from the system. Another layer of security that we've added is a feature called a profile. So for enrollment, we have the notion of a member profile, which we see right here. And data here is exposed only to enrollment users. So let's take a look at Alicia's member profile. We also have what's called a client profile for family wellness and a court profile for tribal court, which each of those contain information that's confidential and specific to the workers in those departments and not shared with potentially each of the other departments. So quick review of what is captured on the member profile. So again, this is where tribal ID and member specific information is captured. We have our blood quantum information here. So again, if we have our biological parents entered in the system and they have blood quanta on their member profile records, we can automatically calculate the blood quantum for this particular individual, the child in this case of these 2 folks. If you have scenarios where sometimes if you're entering ancestry information and you don't have parents or of that particular individual because the records don't go back that far, but what the blood quanta is. And also we've noticed that there are occasions where the automatic calculation sometimes there's exceptions, and those calculations need to be overwritten. So you can also manually enter that blood quantum information instead of using that automatic calculation. Membership change request. This is where you would typically, if somebody wanted to become a member of your tribe, they currently aren't, you would typically start out by entering a contact, creating a member profile for that person, and then creating a membership change request to become a member. So the change request type is membership. And over in this area, once we understand what the requirements are for a person to become a member of your tribe, we would modify this to include sort of like a checklist of all the various requirements. And you wouldn't be able to set the status of this to approved until each of the items in this particular section are set to either yes or not applicable. These are kind of like the defaults, but you could have any number of items here and remove the ones that come out of the box, if you will. And this would be very specific to your tribal membership requirements. We can come back out of here, and we can see all the children of this particular person, any roles and census roles applicable to this person, any resolutions applicable to this person. And you can also store documents. So this is where you would upload potentially a birth certificate or a descendant report or a base roll report. You can see here, I'll just quickly click on one of these to open it. Once it's uploaded, you can access it anytime. And from here, this is just a test for, test document for demo purposes, but you could print it out, send it as an email, make a hard copy of it to put in a folder if you so desired, but you could track any of those. And we keep these typically on the member profile, again, to keep them secure from any other departments that shouldn't see that information. We could also set that up at the contact level if desired for documents that could be shared across departments. All right, coming back to the contact, we also have the general section where we can check their marital status, any disabilities, languages, whether or not they're a member of a household, et cetera. You guys can see this. I don't need to read every detail of it, but just really quickly, you also have your timeline here and this is available on nearly every area in the system where you can track touches of a contact in this case. So anytime you get maybe an email from someone, it could be up here. When you send an email to them, it could be tracked here. Phone calls, notes about a phone call could be noted here. And I'll show you in a short while comments that can go back and forth between the portal. You can track any number of addresses for an individual. We have the notion of an address type. So a person could have more than one home address. They might have a seasonal address, a school address. They might have an address if they're incarcerated that's different, that needs to be tracked when they're in the military and so forth. Again, multiple emails and phone numbers as well, which we refer to as electronic addresses. And then from here, just really quickly, any number of other names can be tracked, nicknames, maiden names, AKAs. There's a full suite of committees that can be set up in the system, and then you can track which committees a person is a member of, what position they may hold, track the committee meetings themselves and the schedule, and then track attendance for those committees. This tab contains quite a bit. There's education, skills, certifications, training, and languages. We've seen this used where, for example, if there's some work that needs to be done in the tribal headquarters, and you need somebody who knows how to do drywall, you may be able to do a search in the system to see if you have any tribal members who have that skill and need some work, and potentially offer them that job before you might offer it, or search outside of the tribe for somebody with that skill. Any number of emergency contacts, track their employment history, excuse me, their incarceration history, military service, monthly income and expenses. This is typically not necessarily often used by the enrollment staff, but it can be monitored or maintained here. But it's set up so that you can see the total income and expenses for an individual, and then use that for eligibility potentially for programs that you offer over on the family wellness side. Track all the relationships of a person. It could be cousins, aunts, uncles, parents, grandparents, children, grandchildren, acquaintances, siblings, and then there's a kinship report that gathers all this information. And then finally, change requests, and we'll see a little bit more about this. We don't have any currently for Alicia, but we're going to do a change request for Alicia's address out of the portal and show you how that works between the enrollment staff and the portal. We'll see that in a moment. All right, one big benefit of the app provides the notion of a household. So we'll take a look at households now. Within the household, you have the designated head of household. We'll take a look at the Sunny Wilson household. So we're tracking who is the head of the household, the primary address for that particular household, and then members of that household. And then within this, we've got income and expenses entered for both Alicia and Harry. We don't have any entered yet for Sunny, or maybe he isn't working. And we can then track the overall household income and expenses by summing up the income and expenses of all the members. Optionally, you can determine whether or not to include that person's income and expenses in the household total income and expenses or not, depending on the scenario. From here, what I want to show you is what happens when you have to change the address of a household. One of the pain points we've heard often, and this is one of our newer features, is, sometimes households may have, 5, 6, 7 or more individuals living in that household, but we have an individual contact record for each of those. So if you have to change their address, you have to do that once every time for each person in the household. With this system, you can change the address at the household level, and it'll automatically change the address on each of those individual contact records. So let's show you that really quickly.
And Peggy, real quick.
Yeah, sure, Don.
This Don. If they didn't want to expose income level, that field could be eliminated. These are fully customizable, right?
Absolutely.
So maybe you wanted a field for vaccination. Is the person been vaccinated, and what date were they vaccinated? I mean, you could customize this to put these fields to be anything you want. That's the point.
Absolutely. Right? Absolutely. And yes, and just really quick to touch on that, Don, when we go through our implementation normal process, we start off with what we call as a requirements gathering workshop. And we walk through the application as it is out of the box, identify any gaps, because every tribe is different. We always find something unique. And then we identify those gaps and figure out how we can best incorporate those needs and requirements into the solution. And as you said, many times it's adding fields and determining where they want those fields to be, what types of fields they need to be, et cetera, and make that, that requirement fit and work well. All right, really quick, we want to show you Sunny's address. Just kind of look at each of these. These are links directly back to the contact. So we can see Alicia's address is the same currently, 124 Cuthbert Road.
Peggy, there was one other question in the chat.
Sure, go ahead.
Would a non-native child or non-native relative be added to the household if maybe they're all living together? That's a question that came up.
It's totally up to the processes of the tribe, but absolutely they can be. And, we would probably recommend that they would be, so that you can see that holistic picture of what that household contains and entails and includes. And again, getting this address change thing to work, if they're not included in a household, their address wouldn't be changed automatically. I mean, that's one minor point, but yes, absolutely.
Okay. And one other question came from Mike out there. Then can once the system's up and running, could they use it to send a bulk email to all enrolled members and any filtered subset of members? They
absolutely could. Yep, we could set it up to do that integration with Exchange, as long as there's a valid email on file for each of those individuals. And then there's a way to check if an individual doesn't want to receive emails, they could be filtered out of that automatically. But you could set that up to be whatever filtered list of contacts you decide to go with.
Could you sort and search on mobile phones and send a text message to all the people you had a mobile phone number for?
So out of the box, that's not something we have set up, but it is something we could add as an additional, one-off for that particular tribe. Absolutely.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you for those questions. Appreciate it. All right. So I've just quickly shown you that all three of these folks have the same address. So I'm going to go now to the head of household's contact record and change create a new physical address. That's the primary address for home for Sunny. And I'm just going to do 123 Any Street. And I apologize. I have a broken arm, so my left arm isn't typing very well. So I do make quite a few typing mistakes. We'll put in the zip code, which is Fort Myers. Fills in the city for me automatically. Then we're good to go there. I've got our required fields. We'll save and close that. And it's going to take a moment or two because it's actually now, it knows this person is the head of a household, part of a household. It's going out and making sure that it updates every address for this particular household. So once it's done, so we now see, and I did make a mistake here. I didn't specify that this was the primary address, which I intended to do. So I may not have done this. Let me do this one more time. My bad. So we'll do a new physical address. There we go. I apologize. Trying to go too fast here. 333 Any Street. and 33912. Select that, say yes. Now we'll save and close. And again, it's thinking, it's going through, looking for other household members. It's done. Okay, so now we've got that set the way we want to. We'll go back to our household. And we should now see that that address has been updated on the household. We look at the household members for their addresses, and we can see that that's automatically being updated as well. And finally, Harry has also been updated. So just a quick update there so you can see that feature as it's in play. So that's a brief introduction of the enrollment app. There's lots more functionality, such as the ID cards, as we mentioned, ancestor and descendant reports, the committee tracking, member and committee meetings, and so on. We'll move over now because we don't have a lot of time left and look at the family wellness app. The time is going by very quickly. Okay, so really quickly, we have the same notion of the dashboards here. We have our contacts. And if we look at Alicia from this app, we can see we do not see that member profile that we saw on the enrollment side, but we do see the client profile. So today, in this case, we're actually going to want to work with Harry. And I'm going to have to make this briefer than I intended. I apologize. Just to give you an idea of the things that are available on the client profile, we pull in information over from the enrollment just for reference. So that's why these are all locked. They're just view only. We can see the addresses and emails and phone numbers here, and those that we can add new ones here if need be. And then specifically on the profile, we bring in that income and expense information, again, for the family wellness folks to confirm whether or not, if it's a finance-based eligibility for a particular program that they're requesting services via, to make sure that they're eligible. Driver's license information, guardianship information. We can track their medical information, including their providers, their primary medical and dental providers, any medical background that they may have, and insurance information. And then we have the notion of a service request. So the service request is intended to be more or less the intake, if you will. And we already have one here for Harry. So really quickly to show you kind of the information that we track on the service request. In this case, Harry is concerned about drinking too much. So he's asking for some addiction counseling as an example. And we do have a program for that. Once that program is selected, the criteria for that program appear, again, to help the Family Wellness Department understand, is this person eligible to receive these services? Is there funding available, et cetera? You can see all that there. You can track various different case notes here if need be. And then finally, you can make a service request decision. In this case, it was approved. A caseworker was assigned. And from here, we can move on and we can see if there's any referrals or group activities. We've signed Harry up to attend AA meetings and his family to attend Al-Anon meetings. He's got a group activity here. He's registered for addiction counseling and he's got to attend at least 6 of those sessions. The group activity has the capability of tracking anybody who's registered for each of those and then tracking whether or not they attended. So you can confirm if folks in fact did attend or not. And have they met the criteria for their particular program. We did turn this particular service request into a case. And on the case, we can see, again, details of where it started, the relationships. We can add case parties. In this case, we added Harry's parents, Sunny and Alicia, to help support him through this process. We have our case notes. We have assessments. If we do assessments over time, we can print a assessment progress report, and I'll show you this really quickly. We've already done, I think it was 4, we've done 4 assessments on Harry. So you can see the various different criteria, physical wellness, emotional wellness, et cetera, and then ranking from 0 to 10. So from not doing so well to doing excellent. You can see over time, Harry's wasn't doing so well, did a little better, kind of went back a little bit, and now he's doing better. And if you as you add more of these, obviously they will appear on this report. Just a quick example of a report there. What I wanted to show you too was you can set up payment requests. So we can see here, Harry already has one payment request, but we'll try to squeeze this in really quick. We can do this very quickly. The requester's Harry, we're paying a company, we're paying Autal Consulting. We are looking for an approver here. I'll be the approver and I'll approve it today. It's going to be a check and I need $250. And I think that's everything I need there. I can save that. Nope, I missed a required field. Which did I miss? I need the program, Diction and Counseling. There we go. Okay, excellent. So the system will also stop you from not entering the data that you need to enter. From here, I can set this to approved. And once I save that, we're not going to have time to do the whole process, but just to show you, we go over to the distribution payments module, and there's a payment event out here that you would set up new. And I'll show you one that we've already done in a moment, but you would just pick the date, pick payment request as the type, set this to restart processing and save it. And once you do that, the system's going to go out and gather any on-process payments that are from Family Wellness that may need to be, that haven't been processed yet. You can see there's Harry's payment for $250. From here, there's a couple of reports you can run to make sure everything's okay. And then this is where you would then export to Excel and have those checks actually processed by the financial system. And then the flip side of that, we'd come back to Family Wellness and we could either do an import from the financial system to update the actual check date, actual amount, et cetera, and then set that check request to complete. And once we do that, that's when we update automatically the program, which is here. And we won't see it because I didn't go through the whole process here, but you can see the remaining funds and the total number of checks and services and so forth that are applicable to this program. And then there's also a payment request history here. So you can see we've got one that we already did for Harry and one that's in progress. So again, I know I'm going very, very fast.
Yeah, a couple of questions popped up, Peggy.
Sure.
Rick Grant said when you were talking about modifying fields, he was thinking for his needs, he sees potentially fields like clanship or the Indian name and correct spelling of it and what society that individual belongs to. Those obviously could all be fields that you could put in, right?
Yep. So we already do have the notion of clan, and that obviously is unique to each tribe. So that we see that right here. We don't have it specified for Alicia at this time, but that is something that we offer. And then there's also band. And if those don't meet the need, we can certainly add additional fields that clarify and meet that requirement for sure.
And thinking out of the box, Rick said, is there a way maybe we can even have audio to how to pronounce their Indian name potentially? I don't know if audio is available in the system.
So we would have to probably do some research on that, but I wouldn't rule it out. Absolutely.
Okay. The question from Chris Dennett was on their current on-premise environment. Only users who are on their tribal network are able to use the system, and they're limited by the number of licenses they purchase. Mm-hmm. With Tribal Platforms 4.0, how are the numbers of users moderated/limited? And are we able to allow members or users who are not employees of the government to access any part of the system?
Yep. So that's kind of a two-part question. So you'll have your staff users of the system who will be allowed into the system anywhere they have access to the internet and have a browser on any device, as long as they have a license. And we could talk about licenses in details depending on your needs. And then on the flip side of that, non-employees, which is what I'm going to show you next, is a brief overview of the community portal. So if they are a member or a contact in your system, they don't necessarily have to be a member. You could provide them access to this portal. And again, depending on the needs, this would typically, I'll go ahead and log in now as Alicia to show you what this looks like. But typically you're seeing only your own information for your own purposes. So I'm going to go ahead and log in.
While you're logging in there, Peggy, is Dynamics 3, another question it popped up from Leslie, and it was in the Q&A, is the Dynamics 365 Fedramp approved, and does Arctic offer a Fedramp approved GCC high or moderate environment or support services?
So I believe the answer is yes. Don, you might be able to answer that better than I.
I know Office 365 100% is Fedramp. I'm fairly certain Dynamics is too, but I'll ping someone in the background, see if I can get an answer.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it is too, but I wanted to just confirm that with you. Okay, so I've just logged in as Alicia Wilson, and what we can see initially is just some information about her that we have on file. If we click on the home page really quick, you can see, again, this is all highly customizable. This is just sort of a starting point example, but we, again, work with you to understand exactly how you'd potentially want to use the portal. We have sort of these 6, what are the most hottest, most common things you think folks would be using this for, and some information more at the bottom that, again, all configurable to your needs. I'm going to show you really quick an address request. So say Alicia's moved, and she's moved to 123B Memorial Avenue, just as an example, in Fort Myers, Florida. And there we go. And this is my primary and my new mailing address. You can see she can also do her phone and email address. She can add files if she wishes to. We'll submit that. So where did this go? So we come back over here into what I call the back office as compared to the front office portal. And we see this option for change requests. And we have in process one. So we just see this one just came in today. Just a few moments ago, where Alicia's requested that her address be changed. Well, we have a rule that says you need to show us proof of that. We need to see an example of, like, a utility bill, for example, with your name and that address on there. So in order to let Alicia know that, we will add a portal comment. And we're going to send that to Alicia. Please upload a copy of utility bill. And we'll save that. Mark it as complete. We come back over here. I'll log out just for the sake of demonstration, so you can see what this looks like. And then the next time, Alicia hasn't heard anything, so she's going to log in again, see if she can check on the status of her request. Sorry for my typing. And once she gets logged in, she can go to my profile, general change requests. She can see her address request here, address change request, view the details of it. And she can see that there's a comment here, please upload a copy of my utility bill. So she can then respond to that. Maybe she doesn't have one yet, but for the sake of demonstration, we'll assume she already has it. Here you go. She can browse to the file she wants. Here's her utility bill. Open, submit, and get out of here. Quickly go back over to the back office, to that change request again. We'll open that up, go to the notes and timeline, and now we should see that she submitted that. Here you go. We can open this particular note, and then we see that utility bill right there. Open that up. Again, it's just a sample for demo purposes, but from here, the staff could make a copy of it, save it, whatever they need to do, and ultimately determine whether or not this is a good address change or not. This is what was requested. If it needs to be tweaked, they can make changes here, and then ultimately they can say, create address, and this is, oh, I have to prove it first, my bad. Save that, and now create the address. This address is being created. Address has been created. So now Alicia's address has been updated, and that change request can be closed. So we have pretty much run out of time. So I'd like to say, first of all, if you'd like to see more detailed demonstration of any of the Tribal Platforms apps, please reach out to us, and we'll be happy to get time scheduled on the calendar to work with you one-on-one. There's a whole lot more that we could show you, but with an hour, it's tough.
Peggy, this is Don.
Let's do some questions. Yeah.
I put a link in the chat window. The Fedramp is Fedramp approved, and there's a link to the document in the chat.
Excellent.
And one last question was, how are notifications given to staff? Email alert, or do they have to log in and find them within the system? It's automatic, I believe, right?
We can do it. We can configure that depending on your needs. We can do emails. We can do, things will show up on dashboards and in list views that folks, will learn to use on the regular. Couple different ways that can be done.
We went a little over by a minute. I want to thank everybody, and Peggy and Arctic IT and Tribal Hub. This is Don Leonetti. Thanks, everybody. Any last thoughts or comments, Peggy or Leslie?
Well, I'd like to invite everyone to visit us at TribalNet. Arctic's at booth 409 and Microsoft's at booth 115. Hoping to see you all there. And I'd also like to thank you for your time. And I apologize that we ran out of time and I had to kind of speed it up at the end.
And more than happy to do one-off discussions with anybody. Just reach out to us. Thank you so much and have a wonderful rest of the week.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you, Peggy and Dan, both on behalf of TribalWise. Great presentation, lots of questions, and thank you to Mary from Arctic, who was in the chat answering questions as well. That was very helpful. And thanks again. Looking forward to seeing both of you at TribalNet shortly in a couple of weeks. It's going to be great. I will be there as well. So again, stop by the Tribal Hub booth. And just a reminder that we do have quite a few webinars coming up for TribalWise. Our next one is actually on the 2nd with Veronis. And any of these webinars, you can go to TribalWise.com and get yourself registered or read any of the presentation summaries or anything like that. So again, on behalf of TribalWise, thank you, Peggy. Thank you, Don. Thank you, Arctic IT and Microsoft. It's always great to partner with you, and these Road to TribalNet series are really beneficial, and our people love to watch them. So thanks again. We appreciate you guys teaming up with us, and we'll see you all next time. Take care.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Leslie. Bye, everybody.